Hi guys, this is Eric Chevallet with Bearing Point, and you're listening to 5 Minutes Ahead. Monday night, Apple released news that was long awaited, and we now know about the Vision Pro device. I think that the internet went bonkers yesterday talking about what it was and what it does and so on. But we wanted to take a different angle and discuss more what it means for the industry and for potential use cases and potential clients on our side. So to discuss that today, I have with me Christian Hutter. Christian, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, Eric. I'm Christian. I'm part of the Bearing Point tech team in Zurich. I have a background in business model innovation and technology. And in the last 15 years, I have been working with different companies looking to adopt new technologies or new software solutions. And some 5 years ago, I got into AR, VR, and then, we started to build a team, build a service offering and software products around these new kind of devices.
So you've been in AR and VR longer than I am. With Christian, we've been working together for a while on addressing our clients' use cases, and even though we said that this podcast is not about Bearing Point, we thought it was nice to just discuss what it means for our client. And so, Christian, what do you think of the announcement? What was your first take when you saw the device, and how do you reflect that versus the use cases that you're currently working on?
It was a very typical Apple announcement. I think it was super high-end, focusing on a high-end experience typically. But it was also clear that it's mostly focused and aimed at developers as an audience, and not yet going really for a mainstream adoption. I think they're very careful about the branding and how such a relatively technically complex product will be perceived by people. So I was impressed for sure, but also I think this is going to change the dynamics in the market and the perception of VR. I would assume in a positive way, not just for Apple, but also for other companies like Meta or even Lenovo.
Yeah, it's funny you using the word VR because that's something that Apple didn't use at all. They didn't use AR either because we were all expecting that. They use spatial computing instead, which is a fancy word for 3D basically. Do you think everyone would understand that perception? And I know we discussed that about the confusion between AR, VR, XR, and so on. What's your take on that?
Yes, that has always been a challenge to explain people what is virtual reality, what is augmented reality, and what's the range in between. And spatial computing, for sure, I mean, it's not an abbreviation that helps. And I think it's more descriptive and maybe a better term to explain what it actually is. They never mentioned the metaverse, which is also, I think, an important differentiation from what has happened in the market before.
Yeah, you mean what Meta said?
Yeah, I mean, the term of metaverse has not been defined by Meta, but they really took it and tried to become a synonym for this. It's basically metaverse would be something like a social virtual reality experience. So it's really more aimed at a social media business model to have a lot of users in an experience that can be shared, and within there you would monetize it through ads, but the experience itself is for free. And how I understand Apple's concept, this is not social media obviously, and is really more about high-end experiences that will be rather paid directly by the users and not through an ad business model.
Yeah, which is a distinction with Apple. It's true that I know that when the word metaverse come into the conversation with the client, with our clients, I always talk about a metaverse-like experience, and by that I imply the social aspect of it. And if you really look at collaboration, if you look at learning, when you are several avatars in a room, somehow that's being in a metaverse. You're together with your avatars. You're just not wandering in the street or in no man's land where you have other avatars that you don't know of being there. Basically, that's the only difference. It's more private scenery than a public one, but the experience by itself and the emotion that is carried over is the one we are focusing on.
Yes, exactly.
Christian, you were talking about the more premium experience, because obviously the if you compare the device and the price of the Apple device versus the to be released Meta device, the Quest 3, we are seeing a huge difference, and basically one is definitely focused at premium, the other one is more mass audience, I would say. Do you think it influenced the nature of experience that we're going to be able to do, or the nature of use cases, or even the nature of clients? What's your think? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean the pricing is definitely that will work for early adopters who just want to have the newest, best technology, and for people who try to build a business around that, specifically developers, to build the ecosystem. I think for those two, the pricing is not such a big issue. So next to those, rather like potential users or buyers with a professional focus, like developers, content creators, or those who really just always want the newest technology at any price. Still, I think if you look at the numbers, like Apple wants to sell something, well, at least several hundreds of thousands of those devices. I think they still want to reach, people that would just focus on premium experiences, like in media and entertainment. And I was wondering if you see how our clients or your clients you're working with, if they would create new experiences for those kind of users as well.
It's a very good question, and I think that the issues they are currently facing is not so much about the quality of the experience or the graphical quality of the experience. It's more about understanding how VR or AR could enable some use cases that today are a problem. And when you really talk to them, it's always an investment. So you cannot justify going to VR for the very first use case by saying we're going to reduce cost on that side, or we're going to do that. It's not obvious. We know that there is a value behind, and we know that you can actually justify from an economical standpoint doing training in VR versus taking a flight to come to a classroom. But it's not one-to-one because of the first investment upfront. And so today they are very sensitive about that first investment threshold. And obviously there is the device behind. Even when it's €500 the device, it's still a discussion. So I don't think that for the B2B cases, our client will look at the Apple device, at the Vision Pro device upfront, because just the cost is a killing. Now that I said that, I think there is some industry where the use cases and the experience has to be premium, and I'm looking at the luxury industry. There it's a different story, because we're not talking about the same thing, and it's really about the brand and the experience, and we want the exclusivity. And there you want to have the high-end quality of the Apple device, and you want to have the graphical experience as well. But from what I saw, there is not much experience yet there on the market. And I think that the fact that Apple announced it Monday, and we'll release the product on the market in January next year. It's to allow time for the community to as well build those experiences. That would be my take on that. But our main client, it's not going to be the first focus because of that first cost threshold that they need to go through. How do you see it on your side? Do you have the same feeling, or what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that companies with a lot of strong focus on branding and luxury branding could make really good use of this experience, like expensive watches, expensive cars, expensive travel experiences. These kind of experiences. I would think in marketing and sales there you would find quite something like a new race to have the best experience in sales, and adding the spatial computing dimension on it could be quite interesting to see where this is going.
Yeah, I agree. Christian, I think there's one thing that I'm also wondering is somehow the discussion before with client when we were talking AR or VR was pretty down to earth, and basically we were looking at the Meta Quest in terms of devices. We knew that there are more B2B grade devices, but as part of the discussion, everyone knows the Quest. Now we have a second device. We are seeing that the AR and VR discussion is kind of blurrier by the day, so it's not so much a discussion anymore. But will it clarify what is used for what, or do you think it will create more confusion in our client's mind, or is it like clearer now, or even blurrier because there is a different prism looking at spatial computing?
I think it's more confusing now. It didn't really help because Apple was rather generic with their use cases as well. I would say that, yeah, probably clients and companies now need to know a bit more as well what is really the right device and also the right ecosystem for the goals they want to achieve. For example, if your goal is to use immersive experiences for process training or for safety training, then a device like the Meta Quest 2 or then 3 are more than good enough to do that and to achieve your goals. And there you have a device which is $500 or then $400 or euros a piece, compared to 3,500. It's basically a factor of 7.
Yeah.
So that will make a big impact on the actual business case if you want to use new technologies to optimize your business processes.
I fully agree, and I'm curious to see what Meta will do with the Quest 3, because I think they announced it last week because they knew what Apple was doing, so they wanted to somehow get their head out. But they were not very specific about what would be the improvement versus the Quest 2. So it will be an interesting discussion, and for sure we have two illustrations in terms of range of possibilities from a graphical standpoint. The very premium one on one hand with the Apple device, and the more conventional one, so to speak, with the Quest device. Yeah.
When you now, I mean, the Apple device is still, well, at least I would say half a year out before it will be released, and then first in the US only. So how would you still start today to prepare for something like that? Or would you rather wait and see?
Well, for me, clearly, we need to start today, but it's not because of the device. Actually, I think that the discussion and the use cases we are addressing and our clients should look at is irrelevant of the device. I think that the power of immersive technology and spatial computing and VR and whatever the way you want to call it, it's because you can actually deploy real use case at scale that we know do not work on a pure web-based approach. Like if you want to meet with people, it's better if you immerse than on Teams, as long as you are 4 or 5 in the room. If you want to learn e-learning versus v-learning, we know that the figures are very clear and you're more engaged being in VR. There's many use cases out there that should be addressed. And those use cases, they are not driven by the device. They are driven by the value of the experience. And it has to be user-centric. And therefore, they need to look at it now, because it will create over time a competitive advantage for those who really understand how to do it, what works, what doesn't work, and so on. So there's still a learning curve. And then we'll see if it's on the Quest 3, if it's on a Pico, if it's on an Apple device. I think it will be more like looking at the target personas behind that we want to address. So you really need to map that. But no, I don't think they should wait. I think they should push now, because it will give them a definitely competitive advantage once we're gonna hit the maturity curve. Basically, we're still very in the innovation now. So, what do you think on your side? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, we already see a lot of activity of companies who are, have implemented use cases successfully that are not even covered by what Apple has presented as use cases. For example, for product design in an engineering context, for factory design to create digital twins, to use that in business collaboration, to redesign processes, like new processes that are usually a bit abstract to understand if you just visualize it with flowcharts or descriptions. We see that this format of augmented reality and virtual reality are used to visualize workflows and to give people really a clue. Okay, will it work like that in the future, this process, or do we need to change it? For product sales, clearly, and also you have been working with sports experiences, like using this technology in, the media and entertainment business. It's all ongoing. So yeah, I see that this doesn't really change now the use cases. It's just a matter of, okay, which ecosystem is the right one for you? And this is what you need to look at.
And it really calls for the segmentation of the personas, actually. So if we look at the challenges now, Christian, what do you think people looking at launching or kicking off a VR journey or transformational journey based on VR or AR, what do you think they should do, basically? How do you usually take it with your client? What's your take on that?
Well, usually what we do is we look where you would find the biggest potential to, help them in a business case point of view. Like, can we address certain pain points or offer new opportunities that have been not yet implemented in the business model of the client? And then we test. We just go there and test some of the solutions that we know or built. And then we usually start building something like a roadmap to help the client to be a bit specific how to implement certain first prototypes, and then test these prototypes very early on with clients of our clients, or like real employees, real users, to collect data points of how this will be perceived, and if it's going in the right direction to justify more investments.
I think it's very important what you're saying, because there's one thing that is for certain, is that it's a user-centric discussion. And therefore, we need to involve the user, the end user, very early in the process to understand what works and what doesn't work, or what is more relevant and what is less relevant. Because we may go with assumptions, obviously, but you need to validate those assumptions along the road and very early in the process. And I do exactly the same.
Yeah, you did that in Paris a lot, right? In the office.
Yeah. We did. We had like more than 100 demos actually with different clients to understand what was their behavior and their reaction into that. And clearly, what we saw at the time, it was, even though the graphic quality of the experience was important, because of the complexity to reach it, and a Quest device is a limited factor typically. When you have a gaming computer linked to the device, to the headset, then it's a very different story. But you want that experience to be as simple as possible, therefore not tethered to a laptop or whatsoever. And actually, the emotion inside the experience is a lot stronger than the impact of the graphical quality. And we decided at some points to focus on the emotion rather than the graphical quality, knowing that the graphical quality is coming. And Apple clearly says it's there, it's getting there at a price now that is high, but we know that it's coming. So it won't be the issue typically.
Yeah, I agree.
There's one thing that you say that is very important as well, because when our clients are looking at use cases, sometimes they really have a short-term mindset in looking into it, and they really need to build a roadmap, as you said. They really need to have a direction where they want to go, and how to position a set of experiences, because not only one experience, it's going to be several experiences or several use cases that could be addressed, and you need to build a consistent experience through those use cases and not only one, and that requires setting up a clear roadmap and a clear direction that you want to go, even though you might test and change your point of view along the way, as we said earlier, but the cape has to be set at some points in terms of strategic intent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one example there is, obviously it's always a mix of experiences. We now have not only one new kind of experience type, but like several. We have augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. There's also things like assisted reality or 360-degree streaming. Those are all new types of how to consume content, how to experience content. And before we basically had, at least in the digital world, we just had a PC, tablet, smartphone. They're all 2D, all flat. And the challenge there in creating such roadmaps is to how this all comes together, because you cannot just replace 3D or replace 2D by new 3D experiences. This will not work.
No, I agree.
And also you need to be aware of what are synergies along these new types of experience. For example, where can you use 3D models that you create, for example, of your product? How can you use that along your whole value chain? For example, starting from product development, going over to product management or product sales, rather, where you show the client how your product can be used in the real field, have better experiences, and then even for training and learning, how your company, for example, can repair those products in the field. This can all be done based on more or less the same 3D model. But you need to know how to lift those synergies. Otherwise, those business cases will be more difficult.
Absolutely. And that's part of the roadmap assessment, is how do you make sure that you build on tangible things along the way, and you reuse, which call for, and it's probably another discussion, because we've been focusing a lot on the use cases, but the enterprise needs as well to ask themselves the question now, how are we going to manage all those 3D assets? And I think that there's a topic for discussion just on that topic actually.
Definitely.
So Christian, I think it was a good discussion. We are reaching the end of the time. Any last comment you want to add on the Apple device? Or are you gonna order one soon?
Well, we applied for the beta phase. As we are also we have development teams, so we will work also with Unity software and try to get early versions for sure. Personally, yeah, I guess at some point, but I'm not sure at this price point. Maybe I will go for the next one. But what is your conclusion from this event?
I think it was as expected. Everyone was crazy about what they saw, and I think that same as Meta did in 2021. I think we're gonna hear a lot more now about spatial computing and metaverse experience and VR AR in the coming month until the next wave. That's for sure. But I think it's business as usual in deploying the use cases. It doesn't change much on that point. So but I'm really excited about big players jumping in and still pushing, and the momentum on the market is clearly there. So for all our clients, it's an opportunity to rethink the way they do things, basically. So the dynamic is there, and that's very positive from my perspective.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, I think we're reaching the end, Christian. So thank you very much for your attendance, and we'll speak soon anyway on the business side. And to all, bye bye.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Eric.
Bye, guys.